Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Reading Little Blue Books Out Loud. Stoned. In this video, we're going to be doing part 5 of our first big Little Blue book, and it is titled Not Guilty, A Defense of the Bottom Dog, written by Robert Blatchford. Now this is a condensed version with a foreword by Miriam Allen DeFord. There it is. And this will be, as I said, part 5. Oh, this is copyright 1944. This particular little blue book, not the actual Not Guilty. So here we go. Our next chapter is titled Free Will. The free will delusion has been a stumbling block in the way of human thought for thousands of years. Let us try whether common sense and common knowledge cannot remove it. The Free Will Party claimed that man is responsible for his acts because his will is free to choose between right and wrong. We reply that the will is not free, and that if it were free, man could not know right from wrong until he was taught. When a man says his will is free, he means that it is free of all control or interference, that it can overrule heredity and environment. We reply that the will is ruled by heredity and environment. The cause of all the confusion on this subject may be shown in a few words. When the Free Will Party say that man has a free will, they mean that he is free to act as he chooses to act. There is no need to deny that. But what causes him to choose? That is the pivot upon which the whole discussion turns. The Free Will Party seem to think of the will as something independent of the man, or something outside of him. They seem to think that the will decides without the control of the man's reason. To begin with, the average man will be against me. He knows that he chooses between two courses every hour and often every minute, and thinks that his choice is free. But that is a delusion. His choice is not free. He can choose, and does choose, but he can choose only as his heredity and environment cause him to choose. He never did choose and never will choose, except as his heredity and his environment, his temperament and his training cause him to choose, and his heredity and his environment have fixed his choice before he makes it. A man is practicing at a target with a gun when a rabbit crosses his line of fire. The man has his eye and his sights on the rabbit and his finger on the trigger. The man's will is free. If he presses the trigger, the rabbit will be killed. Now, how does a man decide whether or not he shall fire? He decides by feeling and by reason. He would like to fire just to make sure that he could hit the mark. He would like to fire because he would like to have the rabbit for supper. He would like to fire because there is in him the old hunting instinct to kill. But the rabbit does not belong to him. He is not sure that he will not get into trouble if he kills it. Perhaps, if he is a very uncommon kind of man, he feels that it would be cruel and cowardly to shoot a helpless rabbit. Well, the man's will is free. He can fire if he likes. He can let the rabbit go if he likes. How will he decide? On what does his decision depend? His decision depends upon the relative strength of his desire to kill the rabbit and of his scruples about cruelty and the law. Not only that, but if we knew the man fairly well, we could guess how his free will would act before it acted. The average sporting Briton would kill the rabbit, but we know that there are men who would on no account shoot any harmless wild creature. Broadly put, we may say that the sportsman would will to fire, and that the humanitarian would will not to fire. Now, as both their wills are free, it must be something outside the wills that make the difference. Well, the sportsman will kill because he is a sportsman. The humanitarian will not kill because he is a humanitarian. And what makes one man a sportsman and another a humanitarian? Heredity and environment, temperament and training. One man is merciful, another cruel by nature, or one is thoughtful and the other thoughtless by nature. That is a difference of heredity. One man may have been taught all his life that to kill wild things is sport. The other may have been taught that it is inhumane and wrong. That is a difference of environment. Now, the man by nature, cruel or thoughtless, who has been trained to think of killing animals as sport, becomes what we call a sportsman, because heredity and environment have made him a sportsman. The other man's heredity and environment have made him a humanitarian. The sportsman kills the rabbit because he is a sportsman, and he is a sportsman because heredity and environment have made him one. That is to say, the free will is really controlled by heredity and environment. But it may be asked, how do you account for a man's doing the thing he does not wish to do? No man ever did a thing he did not wish to do. When there are two wishes, the stronger rules. Let us suppose a case. A young woman gets two letters by the same post. One is an invitation to go with her lover to a concert. The other is a request that she will visit a sick child in the slums. The girl is very fond of music and is rather afraid of the slums. She wishes to go to the concert and to be with her lover. She dreads the foul street and the dirty home, and shrinks from the risk of measles or fever. But she goes to the sick child, and she foregoes the concert. Why? Because her sense of duty is stronger than her self-love. Now, her sense of duty is partly due to her nature, that is, to her heredity, but it is chiefly due to environment. Like all of us, this girl was born without any kind of knowledge and with only the rudiments of a conscience. But she had been well taught, and the teaching is part of her environment. We may say that the girl is free to act as she chooses, but she does act as she has been taught, and she ought to act. This teaching, which is part of her environment, controls her will. Macbeth was ambitious, but he had a conscience. He wanted Duncan's crown, but he shrank from treason and ingratitude. Ambition pulled him one way, honor pulled him the other way. The opposing forces were so evenly balanced that he seemed unable to decide. Was Macbeth free to choose? To what extent was he free? He was so free that he could arrive at no decision, and it was the influence of his wife that turned the scale to crime. Was Lady Macbeth free to choose? She did not hesitate, because her ambition was so much stronger than her conscience, and she never was in doubt. She chose as her own overpowering ambition compelled her to choose. And most of us in our decisions resemble either Macbeth or his wife. Either our nature is so much stronger than our training, and our training so much stronger than our nature, that we decide for good or evil as promptly as a stream decides to run downhill. Or our nature and our training are so nearly balanced that we can hardly decide at all. We may say that Nelson was free to run away from an enemy, but we know that Nelson's nature and training had left him free only to run after an enemy. All the world knew before the event how Nelson's free will would act when a hostile fleet hove into view. Heredity and environment had settled the action of Nelson's free will in that matter before the occasion to act arose. We may say that Nelson's will was free in the case of Lady Hamilton, but it seems to have been free only to do as Lady Hamilton wished. When Nelson met an enemy's fleet, he made haste to give them battle. When he met Lady Hamilton, he struck his flag. Some other man might have been free to avoid a battle. Some other man might have been free to resist the fascinations of a friend's wife. Horatio Nelson was free only to act as his nature and his training compelled him to act. To Nelson, honor was dearer than life, but Lady Hamilton was dearer than honor. Nelson's action in Lady Hamilton's case was largely due to the influence of environment. To hesitate in war was universally regarded as shameful, but in Nelson's environment, a love intrigue was condoned as an amiable human weakness. Hence the failure of Nelson's will and conscience to resist the blandishments of the handsome Emma. We may say that Jack Sheppard and Cardinal Manning were free to steal or to refrain from stealing. But we know that the heredity and environment of the thief had made robbery for him a proof of prowess and a question of the value of the spoil. And we know that the cardinal would not have stolen the crown jewels if he could, that he did not want them, and would not have taken them if he had wanted them. We say that a drunkard and a lifelong abstainer are free to drink or to refuse a glass of whiskey. But we know that in both cases the action of the will is a foregone conclusion. In all cases, the action of the will depends upon the relative strength of two or more motives. The stronger motive decides the will, just as the heavier weight decides the balance of a pair of scales. In Macbeth's case, the balance seemed almost even. Lady Macbeth's persuasion brought down the scale on the wrong side. If the will were free, it would be independent of the temperament and training, and so would act as freely in one case as in another. So that it would be as easy as for the drunkard as for the lifelong abstainer to refuse to drink. As easy for the thief as for the cardinal to be honest. As easy for Macbeth as for Lady Macbeth to seal the fate of Duncan. But we all know that it is harder for one man than for another to be sober, or honest, or virtuous, and we all know that the sobriety or honesty or virtue of any man depends upon his temperament and training, that is to say, upon his heredity and his environment. We might say that a woman's will is free, and that she could, if she wished, jump off a bridge and drown herself. But she cannot wish. She is happy and loves life, and dreads the cold and crawling river, and yet by some cruel turn of fortune's wheel, she may become destitute and miserable, so miserable that she hates life and longs for death, and then she can jump into the dreadful river and die. Here, her will is at one time as at another. Wait a minute, let me reread that. Her will was free at one time as at another. It is the environment that has wrought the change. Once she could not wish to die. Now she cannot wish to live. The will is as free in one nation and in one class as in another. Who would more willingly return a blow, an Irish soldier or an English Quaker? Who would be readier to stab a rival, an English curate or a Spanish smuggler? The difference does not concern the freedom of a will, or of the will. It is a difference of heredity and environment. The wills of a priest and a sailor are free, free to make love in every port and to swear in every breeze. The difference is one of environment. The free will party look upon a criminal as a bad man, who could be good if he wished. But he cannot wish. The free will party would say that if Smith wills to drink, he is bad. But we say that Smith drinks, and to drink is bad. But Smith drinks because he is a Smith. The free will party say that he was born bad, but we say no, he was born Smith. Heredity and environment having made a man a thief, he will steal. Heredity and environment having made a man honest, he will not steal. This is to say, heredity and environment have decided the action of the will before the time has come for the will to act. This being so, and we all know that it is so, what becomes of the sovereignty of the will? Let any man that believes that he can do as he likes ask himself why he likes. And he will see the error of free will and will understand why the will is the servant and not the master of the man. For the man is the product of heredity and environment, and these control the will. Two boys work at a hard and disagreeable trade. One leaves it, finds other work, gets on, is praised for getting on. The other stays at the trade all his life, works hard all his life, is poor all his life, and is respected as an honest and humble working man. That is to say, he is regarded by society as Mr. Dorgan was regarded by Mr. Dooley. He is a fine man, and I despise him. What causes these two free wills to act so differently? One boy knew more than the other boy. He knew better. All knowledge is environment. Both boys had free wills. It was in knowledge they differed. Environment. Those who exalt the power of the will and belittle the power of the environment belie their words by their deeds. And I'm going to pause right there because I got cotton mouth. So, this hydration break brought to you by Maddie. Don't forget to hydrate, Maddie. All right, where was I? Belittle the power of environment. Okay. For they would not send their children amongst bad companions or allow them to read bad books. They would not say the children have free will and therefore have power to take the good and leave the bad. They know very well that evil environment has power to pervert the will, and that good environment has power to direct it properly. They know that children may be made good or bad by good or evil training, and that the will follows the training. That being so, they must admit that the children of other people may be made good or bad by training. And if a child gets bad training, how can free will save it? Or how can it be blamed for being bad? It never had a chance to be good. That they know this is proved by their carefulness in providing their own children with better environment. We often hear it said that a man is to blame for his conduct because he knows better. Third time, okay. It is true that men do wrong when they know better. Macbeth knew better when he murdered Duncan. But it is true also that we often think a man knows better when he does not know better. For a man cannot be said to know a thing until he believes it. If I am told that the moon is made of green cheese, it cannot be said that I know it to be made of green cheese. Many moralists seem to confuse the words to know with the words to hear. Jones reads novels and plays opera music on Sunday. The Puritan says Jones knows better, when he means that Jones has been told that it is wrong to do those things. But Jones does not know that it is wrong. He has heard someone say that it is wrong, but he does not believe it. Therefore, it is not correct to say that he knows it. It is no use asking an agnostic to believe the story of Jonah and the whale. He could not believe it. He might pretend to believe it. He might try to believe it, but his reason would not allow him to believe it. That is a simple matter and looks quite trivial. But how much ill will, how much intolerance, how much violence, persecution, and murder have been caused by the strange idea that a man is wicked because his reason cannot believe that which to another man's reason seems quite true. Free will has no power over a man's belief. A man cannot believe by will, but only by conviction. A man cannot be forced to believe. You may threaten him wound him, beat him, burn him, and he may be frightened or angered or pained, but he cannot believe, nor can he be made to believe until he is convinced. Now, truism as it may seem, I think it necessary to say here that a man cannot be convinced by abuse nor by punishment. He can be convinced only by reason. To burn a man alive for failing to believe that the sun goes round the world is not to convince him. The fire is scorching, but it does not seem to him to be relevant to the issue. He never doubted that the fire would burn, but perchance his dying eyes may see the sun sinking down into the west as the world rolls on its axis. He dies in his belief, and he knows no better. That's the end of that chapter. I guess we'll just call them chapters. They're like sometimes half a page, sometimes 3 pages. Okay, next chapter. Self-control. The subject of self-control is another simple matter which has been made difficult by slovenly thinkers. The control of man by heredity and environment is not the end of all effort. On the contrary, it is the beginning of all effort. We do not say that the control of the earth by gravity and centrifugal force is the end of its motion. We know that it is the cause of its motion. But, we are told, the earth cannot resist. It is compelled to act. Man is free. Man is not free. Man is compelled to act. Directly a child is born, it begins to act. From that instant until the end of its life, it continues to act. It must act. It cannot cease from action. The force of heredity compels it to act. And the nature of its actions is decided, 1, by the nature of the individual, which is his heredity, and 2, by his experiences and training, which are his environment. Therefore, to cease from all action is impossible. Therefore, it is nonsense to say that if we are creatures of heredity and environment, we shall cease to act. But it may be said a man can cease from action. He has power to kill himself. Well, the earth has power to destroy itself if it is caused to destroy itself, and man cannot destroy himself unless he is caused to destroy himself. For the nature of a man, through heredity, is to love life. No man destroys himself without a cause. He may go mad, he may be in great grief, he may be disappointed, jealous, angry, but there is always a cause when a man takes his own life. And, be the cause what it may, it belongs to environment. So that a man cannot even take his own life until heredity and environment cause him to do it. If our heredity be good and our environment be good, we must act well. We cannot help it. If our heredity be bad and if our environment be bad, we must act ill. We cannot help it. What? Do you mean to say I cannot be good if I try? It is not evident that you must have some good in you if you wish to try. Okay, is it not evident that you must have some good in you if you wish to try? That good is put there by heredity and environment. But even a bad man tries to be good. That is slovenly thinking. A man who is all bad has no desire for good. Any man who has a desire for good is not all bad. Therefore, a man who is bad never tries to be good, and a man who tries to be good is not bad. When it is said that a bad man tries to be good, the idea is that a very imperfect man tries to be rather better. And he tries to be rather better because heredity and environment cause him to wish to be rather better. Before a man can wish to be good, he must know what goodness is. All men are born destitute of knowledge. To know what goodness is, he must learn. All learning is environment. But when a man knows what is good and wishes to be good, he will try to be good. He cannot help trying, and he will try just as hard and just as long as his temperament and training cause him to try. and he will succeed in being just as good as his temperament and training cause him to be. And his temperament is heredity, and his training is environment. Then, exclaims the confused opponent, the man himself counts for nothing. Is he a mere machine? No, he is not a mere machine. He is a mere man. And he counts for just as much as his heredity and environment amount to. For his heredity and environment are he. It is so with any human effort. We all know that we cannot do more than we can, whether we believe in free will or not. But we do not know how much we can do, and nobody can tell us. The only way is to try, and we try just as hard as our nature and our desire impel us to try, and just as long as any desire or any hope remains. Not only that, we commonly try when the limit of our attainment is in sight, for we try to get as near the limit as we can. For instance, a young man adopts literature as his trade. He knows before he dips a pen into a bottle that he will never reach the level of Shakespeare and Homer, but he tries to do as well as he can. A miner might be sure his reef would not yield 1,000,000, but he would go on and get all he could. So it is in the case of a desire for virtue. A man knows that he cannot be better than his nature and his knowledge allow him to be. He knows that he will never be as good as the best. But he wants to be good, and he tries to be good as he can. The fact that a private soldier is not likely to get a commission does not prevent him from trying to get a sergeant major's stripes. The knowledge that he is not likely to get 21 bullseyes in a match does not prevent a rifleman from getting all the bullseyes he can. We do not say that it is no use trying to be good, no use trying to be clever. On the contrary, we say that no man can be good or clever unless he does try. But that his desire to try, his power to try, and his knowledge of the value of trying are parts of his heredity and his environment. Boy says, I cannot do the sum. His friend says, try again. I had to try 6 times, but I did it. That encouragement is environment. A man says, I cannot keep steady, I have tried. His friend says, yes, you can. Try again. Keep on trying. Try for your children's sake. That speech is environment. We advise a weakly lad to try a course of gymnastics and encourage him to persevere. That is environment. We all know that we can train and curb ourselves, that we can weed out bad habits and cultivate good habits. No one has any doubt about that. The question is what causes us to do the one or the other. The answer is heredity and environment. We can develop our muscles, our brains, our morals, and we can develop them enormously. But before we can do these things, we must want to do them. And we must know that we can do them and how to do them. And all knowledge and all desire comes from environment and heredity. A man wants to learn French or shorthand. Let him ask himself why he wants to learn, and he will find the motive springs from temperament or training. He begins to learn. He finds the work difficult and irksome. He has to spur himself on by all kinds of expedients. Finally, he learns or he gives up trying to learn. And he will find that his action has been settled by a contest between his desire to be able to write shorthand or to speak French and his dislike to the drudgery of learning. Or that his action has been settled by a conflict between his desire to know shorthand or French and his desire to do nothing or something else. He does the thing he most desires to do, and all desire comes from heredity and or from environment. Every member of his body, every faculty, every impulse is fixed for him by heredity. Every kind of knowledge, every kind of encouragement or disencouragement comes of environment. I hope we have made that quite clear. Now we may ask of what it leads us. And we find that it leads us to the conclusion that everything a man does is, at the instant when he does it, the only thing he can do. The only thing he can do then. That's the end of that chapter. Let's see if we have time enough for an additional one. No, I think we'll stop right there. Okie dokie McSmokey. That's where we're stopping. This concludes part 5 of Big Little Blue Book, called Not Guilty, A Defense of the Bottom Dog, originally written by Robert Blatchford. It has been condensed with a foreword by Miriam Allen DeFord, copyright 1944. There you go. Thanks for listening, and join me in part 6.